What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Roll Tide Cafe, a part of the Bama Standard Network. I'm going to be one of your hosts today, Jonathan Lewis.
And I'm Daniel Petty, one of the hosts of the Opening Kick.
Make sure to check out his shows as well. All those will be linked in the description below. So, with that being said, we're going to be talking about, a story about Jalen Hurts. Obviously, Philadelphia winning the Super Bowl, beating the Kansas City Chiefs 40-22 last night. But Daniel, I wanted us to get on here and basically give the story of Jalen Hurts, but also give flowers out to the other Alabama players, previous Alabama players that are on the Philadelphia Eagles as well. So with that being said, I'm just going to give a list of names of current players on the Eagles, right, that played at Alabama, and then we'll jump into this Jalen Hurts story because I feel like it needs to be said, right? Flowers need to be given, and I have to eat crow myself on that, and I'll explain that here in a little bit. With that being said, quarterback Jalen Hurts, obviously wide receiver Devontae Smith, Landon Dickerson, who was the center for us, plays guard for them, Tyler Steen, Cameron Latu, Eli Ricks, and Byron Young. As far as stats go, clearly Steen and Dickerson aren't going to have any stats in the stat sheet because, they're guards. But as far as Jalen Hurts, 17-22, 221 yards, 2 TDs, 1 interception, QBR 75.4, and most notable, the Super Bowl MVP, which I thought I would never ever be saying. Devontae Smith, 4 catches, 69 yards, 1 TD. And by the way, that was the first touchdown by a Bama player in Super Bowl history. Your thoughts on that?
Throw that stat out. That's a crazy fact that blew me away, but that is indeed a fact that Devontae Smith's the first Alabama graduate to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl, or finished with Alabama.
There we go. Yeah. It's definitely a wild stat. But with that being said, what's your thoughts on all those players? Any standouts, anything like that? I'll be honest with you, Cameron Latu, I didn't know he was on the Eagles, to be honest with you. And I know Steen was only in there for about a quarter and a half. I don't know what was up with that. But Landon Dickerson, man, he's really cemented himself on that line for the Eagles. And obviously, Jalen Hurts, it seems like, is getting better year by year. But any thoughts on that before we get into this Jalen Hurts story?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I know Hurts is going to be the star of the show today, and you got to give Smith love for the game he played. He's turned into a great receiver in the NFL. But, I think the guy that doesn't get enough flowers is Landon Dickerson, widely regarded as the best offensive line in the NFL. And like you said, he's become a key cog to that and leading, Saquon Barkley to having one of the best seasons in memory, recent memory for running backs. And again, he was the glue to that. So yeah, flowers to Landon Dickerson before we hop on to the Hurts story.
All right, guys. So in case you didn't know, Jalen Hurts came out of Katy, Texas, right down the road from me in San Antonio. About right down the road. Texas is like 40,000 miles wide, it feels like. So if you're within a 6-hour distance, you're right down the road from somebody.
Yeah.
But coming out of Katy, Texas, comes up to Tuscaloosa. And at that time, Daniel, we had a 5-star quarterback, gem of the class, everybody thought, out of California, named Blake Barnett. He's set for one season, I do believe. Had super, super high expectations on him. Looked like a great thrower, a dual threat, right? He can also run the ball. Just a great prospect, right? We get into this USC game. He folds, completely craps the bed. Jalen Hurts comes in, has an outstanding game. I think we end up winning 52-6. Blows US. We blow USC out of the way. I believe that was in Dallas, Texas. Correct me if I'm wrong. Everybody in the comments below. But what was your thoughts initially of Jalen Hurts coming into Tuscaloosa as a freshman? Because I'll be honest with you, man, watching the film in high school, watching him in practice, leading up to the 8A game, I thought he had poor mechanics. He was inconsistent. I'm like, there's no way this guy is going to start his first season at Alabama. No way, no chance. And if he does, there's no way we're winning that many games. Ain't about proving somebody wrong. But what was your thoughts when he first got to Tuscaloosa?
I didn't have many thoughts of him, to be honest. I had no thoughts of Hurts. All I thought about was Barnett. He was, like you said, the cornerstone of the class, the 5-star kid from California. But I'll be honest, and I didn't think we would see him because I didn't think Saban would turn to kind of a green freshman because, like you said, there were some mechanical issues. But I'll be honest, I remember seeing him in his first A-Day, and he kind of popped a little bit. I was like, man, this guy kind of leads the offense better than Barnett does. That, there's, like you said, there's some things that need some fixing, but athleticism and the ability to run and move the ball. It just seemed like the offense looked a little better to me his first day in a time that I was like, man, I think this team might be in trouble. I think we may take a step back. Going into that game, USC was all fired up and a lot of love. And Bama had questions at the quarterback, and then Hurts took over and he showed that leadership. So my doubts were more, I just didn't think of him because he wasn't the heralded prospect. And then he did look good, but I was like, well, he's a freshman. Saban's going to go with the guy that's been in the system. He's proven that's just the way he kind of works. And then I think the story we're going to kind of lay out today, all the way up into him winning the MVP of the Super Bowl, is the story of doubt. That's the story of Jalen Hurts, the story of doubt every step of the way.
Yep. And you should capitalize every single one of those letters when you say doubt. I doubted him. I didn't know many people that didn't give at least a little bit of doubt, right?
Yeah.
When you say the name Jalen Hurts, and look, we have a history of quarterbacks now. When you go back, it's so easy to look back now and say, oh, it was obvious. Yeah, of course, because now we saw what the end prospect was, right? We saw the ending. But when you look at quarterbacks, and you know what I mean, you can attribute this to Mac Jones. You just don't know what you have until that person steps on the field in a bright light and takes control. And me, with Jalen Hurts, what impressed me that first game against USC, in all honesty, it wasn't the throwing, it wasn't the running, it wasn't the calling the plays or making adjustments. It wasn't none of that. It was the simple, like you said, leadership. It was the fact, for some reason, some players have an effect on the game you just can't describe. It's just when they're on the field, the energy's different, the team plays harder, right? The O-line blocks better for you, and things just happen. And it's just like he just controlled the wheel better. As the season went along, got better and better. And in that first season, his true freshman season here, we're talking about 2,780 yards with 23 touchdowns. Then you get into his sophomore season, the second year. And this is where I think people start to creep in about, well, maybe he wasn't going to be the guy leading into the third year with Tua, right? So he had 2,081 yards, 17 touchdowns, 60.4% completion percentage. So he dipped in almost every single category. And it didn't help that you had Tua Tagovailoa behind you. And he was getting more of the limelight than you were, even though you're the starter. But because he would come in during a Vanderbilt game and make this spinning throw for a touchdown in junk time, everybody was like, why isn't this guy starting? And look, we know as Alabama fans, the first thing fans do when they see something that works or it looks really good or new and shiny, we go, ooh, let's see what that looks like as a starter, new and shiny. Right. So,
well, and to the fans' credit, it's as much as Hurts was winning, he was just kind of winning like a kind of with the lunch pail type of mentality. And Tua come in with the arm, and he was kind of the shiny new penny. And it was like, well, shoot, look how his arm kind of pops off the page. And so, yeah, there was that. You always get excited for the backup, but.
Yep. Yeah, and I love you. I love the fact that you said that, man, like the lunch bell thing. Because you're right. Because when you look at Tua, when you look at these guys that have come along, Bryce Young, they're the guys that they come in and they're prototypical, right? Like you have the arm, you have the accuracy, you have the ability. You know they can read a defense. You know they can make adjustments. You know their IQ is through the roof when it comes to football. Once again, what do we keep saying? Jalen Hurts had doubts about all that, including the football IQ. Great human being. Nobody would ever question that. But it just seemed to just never go away. So, and with that being said, obviously we know what happened in 2018 when he got replaced right at halftime, second 26. Tua Tagovailoa throws a winning touchdown to Devontae Smith, which looked very similar last night. Jalen Hurts to Devontae Smith, right, for that touchdown. Yeah. Very, very, very similar. Either way, and we know the story from there of him transferring to Oklahoma. And that's where I love this story, because as an Alabama fan, I know there was a lot of fans that were really mad when he decided to transfer to Oklahoma, right? So Lincoln Riley was at Oklahoma at the time, obviously producing quarterbacks, going to the NFL left and right. I believe it was Kyler Murray was the one leaving as Jalen Hurts was coming in. It was an NFL factory. So give me your take on, I guess, your last couple of years with Jalen, maybe the last year or two, and then him deciding to transfer to Oklahoma.
Well, yeah, it was just a weird time because you got this kid that's winning, but you can tell the offense is starting to kind of get stagnant, and he's winning
Yep.
and he's winning, but it's almost in spite at times. It's because the defense is good or the offense is good, but
Yep.
how do you take it out of a winner's hands? And again, you got the shiny new penny, and then the moment where the offense bogs down and Tua comes in, and we know the history of 4th and 28. But then you have the history of Tua getting hurt and Jalen kind of coming back and being the savior in the exact same arena, which kind of started that story of, man, we always doubt this guy, but he keeps popping up. And man, I got lucky enough. I worked at the VA and got to escort Saban around a few times. And one of the few questions I ever asked Nick Saban was about Tim Tebow, because I had doubts about Tim Tebow. I didn't think he was a good thrower. I didn't think he was going to make it in the NFL. And I asked Saban, and he smartly answered, because I realized then I could have probably ran my mouth on the internet about what he said about Tim Tebow. But the one thing he said, Tim Tebow's a winner. And that kind of resonates with the lunch pail and with Jalen. Some people are just winners, man. No, they don't do it as pretty as Tua did it. They don't do it like Mac did it or certain guys. But at the end of the day, they just get results and win. And that's why you doubt Jalen, because it doesn't look as pretty. He doesn't always, he's not the best passer. But good Lord, man, again, you put him on the bench for Tua. Tua does his thing. You bring him back. He wins the SEC championship. Then he transfers. And it did upset some. But I feel like because he was such a good kid, he was such a good representative and ambassador for the university and the football team. Everybody kind of knew what he was. He's the kid you want your daughter to date type of guy you talk about when you talk about quarterback. They were mad that he went to Oklahoma, but it was also, well, it's Tua time, so it's okay. We're still going to love you from afar. But then he went over there, and like you said, he just continued to win. And they're like, well, it's systems. We're putting him in systems. He ain't going to work in the NFL because there's no system in the NFL that can prop a quarterback.
Man, here's once again, you look back on that and think, how crazy is that? At Oklahoma, 3,851 yards, 32 touchdowns. That doesn't include his rushing stats or rushing touchdowns, by the way. Look, I get it. Lincoln Riley pumps in a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL. And a lot of people are going to say, well, most of them don't work. Here's the thing. There's only so many teams, and there's only one quarterback that's on the field, right? It's not like you have 5 offensive linemen or you have 3 or 4 or 5 wide receivers. So, yeah, most of them are going to fail because, once again, when Tom Brady doesn't retire until he's 65 years old, and who's going to tell Tom Brady to step aside? There's only going to be so many. But then you look at Jalen Hurts. He gets drafted, obviously goes to Philly. And I have quite a few friends that are Philly fans that were initially upset with this pick, by the way. Most of them said the same thing. Alabama fans didn't like him, I wouldn't say didn't like him, but I would say didn't agree with him coming as a quarterback. Oh, well, we'll just make him a running back or we'll make him a receiver. Because here's the thing that went viral almost more than anything when he was at Oklahoma. When you squat 600 pounds or you deadlift damn near 700 pounds, you're strong. There's no getting around the strength. There's no getting around the athleticism, how physical he is, right, when he runs. So he gets to Philly, takes his time, right, learns the system slowly, 1 year at a time. 2 years ago, we know he gets, well, I wouldn't say him because it wasn't his fault in my opinion, but Philly ends up losing to Kansas City in the Super Bowl. Right. So, and once again, what happens with Philly fans? What was the narrative after that game? Doubt. Is he the guy? Can Jalen Hurts lead this team back to a Super Bowl to win the Super Bowl? I mean, this is why I love this story so much, because this dude, Jalen Hurts, has faced so much adversity at every level of his life playing football, it seems like. But what does he do? He bounces back and he wins. Like you said, some people are just winners. So give me your take on that as far as him getting into Philly and then winning the Super Bowl.
I think you made a great point of the evolution of the continual doubt. That's the thing about Jalen. It never seems to go away. I heard it this year. This year, midway through the season, they kind of hit a lull offensively. Well, defenses have figured Jalen out. It's over now for them. And then all of a sudden, you quit looking at them, and they're the hottest, best team in the NFL. Not, I love Allen and what he does. I love what Mahomes does, but right now they're pretty much one-man shows. The best team was the Philadelphia team being led by Hurts, and nobody was really paying attention to it because, again, everybody had started casting doubts that Hurts you can't win a championship with Hurts. You can't do it. Well, it
Yeah,
wasn't the Barkley show last night. Hurts, it was the Hurts show last night.
and I'm so glad you brought that up, because I feel like that's such an important piece of this story. Is if Barkley would have had 180 yards and 2 touchdowns in winning the Super Bowl MVP, that's going to be the first thing that's said. Jalen Hurts didn't lead the team. They're going to say he managed it. He's a game manager. No, I get it. He may not have had 35, 40 touchdowns this season, all this. I understand that fact. But like you said, Jalen Hurts, he's going to do what it takes to win the game. Whether you ask him to throw the ball 15 times or 40 times, that's what he does. And he's going to do one thing really well, and that's be efficient, right? He's going to have a high completion percentage. He's going to run the ball effectively when he needs to run the ball. We saw that last night. You know what I mean? That I think it was 55, 60 yards, maybe even more rushing. When he saw an opening,
72 rushing, but like you said, efficient, 17 of 22 passing. I mean,
efficiency, man. You know what I mean? And then people want to see the Lamar show, or like you said, Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, the flashy stuff. And this guy's in the background. And once again, like everybody keeps doing, they're kind of brushing over the Eagles. Like, oh, well, you know, Jalen Hurts is the quarterback, so how far can they really go? And, well, that got put to bed last night.
Oh, yeah, because to his credit, I mean, Barkley had 25 carries, the best running back, and I just gushing on him, had one of the best rushing seasons in recent memory. He had 25 carries for 67 yards. Kansas City made a concerted effort, which that goes – I kind of talked about this on our show. I was like, Kansas City hadn't given up a 100-yard rusher all year. Well, they still hadn't, and their deal was, we're going to make Jalen Hurts beat us, and he did. They shut Barkley down in order for Hurts and said, Hurts, here's the football, you beat us. He took the football and beat him, man. You got to from all the doubt to hoisting a deserved MVP trophy, because that defensive scheme was designed to say, we don't believe you can beat us, Jalen Hurts. Do it.
So many one-on-ones, so many island shots. And we saw that with Devontae Smith in the touchdown. Left on an island, right? Smoked right by him. And a perfect throw. So,
but hitting the out route with AJ, you know, hitting those routes that you got to hit as an NFL quarterback that he hits.
Yep. So with all that being said, guys, we want to get on here. We want to give the props. We want to give the flowers to all the players on both sides, even Kansas City, mainly the Alabama players, right? On Philly right now, winning. Yeah. Soaking all that up. Obviously, congratulations to Jalen. I want to eat crow for doubting you, right? So that's why I wanted to really make this video as well, saying I was a doubter. You proved me wrong. Not that it really matters. I'm a lowly YouTuber, whatever that may be. But hey, it is what it is, right?
I never saw it. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say, I knew Jalen was going to be a solid NFL QB and on to an NFL Super Bowl MVP. No, I never saw that either. So props to the dude that his book should be Doubt. That should be the title of the Jalen Hurts story. Defeated Doubt.
100%. So with that being said, congratulations to Philly for winning the Super Bowl. Hopefully you can go back to back. I'd like to see Jalen get another one. I'd like to see these players get another one. So glad to see Landon Dickerson come back from his injury at Alabama and do his thing at Philly. Obviously, that's not being talked about as much either. But with that being said, Daniel, any last words before we get off here?
No, I enjoyed it. Bunch of crimson in that green. So, and just a final, hey, man, congrats, Jalen Hurts. Well-deserved to one of the better guys in the game. I hope, like you said, hope he gets to do it again.
No doubt. Glad to see the refs weren't playing for the Chiefs last night. One last shot. No, other than that, everybody have a good day. And as always, roll Tide.
Roll Tide and see you next time.